Hello, my name is Ritesh Tandon, and I am a technical solution architect in Cisco. Today, we are going to see how Cisco's ACI SDN solution can be used in a virtual environment using a concept called Virtual Machine Manager, also known as VMM. In this demo, we will also illustrate integration of Terraform with ACI. Terraform is an infrastructure as a code DevOps tool which can integrate ACI with an existing CI/CD pipeline for an end-to-end network automation. Now, VMM integration is one of the defining factors, one of our USPs, which we to our customers. The two reasons is that one, we are very open and we are very mature. You can see the list, and I had shown this from the ACI APIC tab itself. We do seamless integration with VMware. Uh, on the DVS portion of it, we have VMware on NSX. That means if you want to program they already have NSX in their mess, we can do that. We have also got integration to Red Hat, OpenShift, OpenStack, and the base native flavor of Kubernetes as well with our own CNI. So what we were discussing is that all those providers which you saw on the PPT, you can see that on the console also. We have differentiated it in the provider section itself. It's easier to navigate in that case. In a typical scenario where we have seen with VMware integration, in the demo which we had briefly gone through before we ended yesterday, we had seen how you can go to the console and provision a VMM domain, which is nothing but a DVS, which gets pushed to the vCenter. So it is as simple as going into it, giving the vCenter credentials, right? So that ACI can talk to authenticate with vCenter and push the DVS using the policies. So once you do that, once you go and then you come to the vCenter, you will have something like this, and you can see the name matches. That means it has been pushed. You can also select what version of DVS you have to push from ACI. So once it is done, the VMM domain is created. Now the VMM domain would, in a typical scenario, you will probably go back to the tenant portion of it, whatever tenant you are working on. It could be prod, dev, or in ASP, it could be a different customer also, which is using the same vCenter. And a very typical scenario where an SP provider using infrastructure as a service is making a lot of tenants and typically tying it with the same vCenter he has. But as I said, the tenant becomes the logical boundary to it. And once you go and create an EPG, something like this, you can add the VMM domain which you created in the last one into the domain section of it. And what this does is this ties this EPG to the VMM domain, and automatically a DV port group is created by ACI and it is pushed down to the vCenter. All you have to do now is use this DV port group and attach it to the NIC of your VMs. So ultimately what happens is that all those web VMs will be learned by this particular EPG, named the web EPG, right? And the learning part of it, you can also come back and configure and see in the operational stats that VMs are getting learned. So this is how the segmentation happens using the EPG construct which we had discussed. And the same network policies which you put for that EPG can be reused for a bare metal server like a DB sitting on an Oracle box, or it can be pushed down to a DB like MySQL running on a VMware setup with the VM. And the same EPG can be used and mapped to different domains, a VMM domain, a physical domain, so and so forth. Right. So moving on to the demo portion of it, what I have here is I have created two scenarios, two use cases which I will be taking up in the same time. And what I have done is I'm showing you the power of automation along with the VMM integration we just discussed, right? So I hope people are familiar with something called Terraform, which is an IAC, infrastructure as a code. Now, the the other the automation aspects of, we are also very competitive in terms of when it comes to the other players in the market. We have got integration to Terraform. We have got open APIs. You can create your own solution using APIs, or you can use a tool like Postman to push down configuration. Now, the benefit of it is that we are reusing the code. When we have created one policy set, you can use the same policies to push down multiple tenants. Okay, and once you figure it out how to code it, like in an XML JSON format, or you write a Terraform plan, you can reuse it multiple times. So at this moment, with using the same uh, configuration, I can deploy like 100 tenants on ACI in a go, right? So that is the power of it, and it is very useful when it comes to customers who want to integrate ACI, which is the network and the brains on the SDN portion, along with their application CI/CD framework. So I'm just going to run a simple plan, and I've got some things which I want to prepare the Terraform with. Because what I'm showing is a greenfield deploy, sorry, not a greenfield, a brownfield deployment. That means my tenant and everything is already deployed. Let's say I want to bring in Terraform after that in a very typical scenario, right? How will Terraform be used in a brownfield environment as well? So now that I have imported some of the configuration I need from ACI, so Terraform, what it does is connects to ACI, the Apex server. It reads the configuration. It builds a state in its database, understanding what the ACI deployment like now looks like, and all I have to do is run the config which I want to push now, and that is actually defined in a configuration which I have already done. So in this configuration, what I'm doing is in an existing application profile, I'm putting a new EPG which is mapped to the VMM domain which I've already created, right? When I run Terraform plan, what it is doing is reading the state file which it knows, because it understands what ACI is configuration is already there, and then it tells me that the config file main.tf which I've written, right, which I want to provision. What will happen after I apply the configuration? So I can plan my stuff. I can see that in the plan it says 4 to add, in which I am adding an EPG, BD, and a VMM domain into it. All I have to do now is apply it. I say yes. And now it is creating a bridge domain, creating a EPG, which is tied to my VMM domain. Let me just go back. So what has been done? It created an EPG, and you can see that it is using Terraform orchestrator to push the code. Now this EPG is mapped to the VMM domain, which means that ACI would have already pushed a DB board group to the vCenter. And you can see that in the recent task also. That is the power. All I have to do is write a code. And now a person administrating the VM can use this DB port group, assign it to a VM, and start using it. So what in this scenario, what we have shown is the power of automation which you bring in, and the simplicity of creating and managing your VM-based network and environment tied to a VM integration like vCenter.